Hello everyone, welcome on the Straight Line Talks with Pallavi Sareen. Today I have with me Mr. Vijay Bakaya, the former Chief Secretary of Jammu and Kashmir, and he has also been a member of the Legislative Council. So Mr. Bakaya, first of all, welcome on our show.
Thank you.
So you're retired now. So what's up? Are you writing a book, planning on contesting the recent elections? What's up?
Well, I'm still part of the political party, National Conference, and work in it as a political worker and a senior leader. And of course, I am trying to jot down things in my career which I think should be told to posterity. So, because I've been in the thick of things at the peak of militancy, before, after. So I think I may write my memoirs at some stage. So I'm only organizing my thoughts now.
So before someone gets to read that memoir, I would like to ask you, like at the time when Farooq Abdullah became the CM of J&K, what were your position at that time, and how was the situation in Jammu and Kashmir at that time?
You mean after militancy?
Yeah.
Yeah, between 90 and 96. That was the time when militancy was at its peak. And we had, like we have now, President's rule for 6 years. That was unprecedented. And all of us, we are holding senior positions. Farooq Saab was, of course, not here. By 96, I think we had gained a lot of control over the situation. Militancy had declined. And people were able to move around freely. So Farooq Saab was the only political man in the state who agreed to fight an election. And he won. At that time, I was holding senior positions, and I was Industries Commissioner. I was Grievances Commissioner made by the Governor's administration. Thereafter, I became Planning Commissioner. And that's how it happened after 96 up to 2002.
How was that entire period for the state of Jammu and Kashmir?
Between 96 and 2002, when Farooq Saab took over, we had a very daunting task, because normalcy had just appeared to return, and we had to rebuild what had been destroyed in the last 6 years. Infrastructure had been destroyed, school buildings had been destroyed, bridges had been destroyed, and roads were in a bad condition. So our task, the CM's task, Farooq Abdullah's task, was to mobilize resources to ensure that this damaged infrastructure was restored. And that's what we managed to do. Whatever money we got from the center, we had to deploy on rebuilding infrastructure.
Let's talk about you. You spent time as the Chief Secretary of Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
You were a member of Legislative Council.
Yes.
And you belong to a community of Kashmiri Pandits, right? So in your tenure, what did you do for Kashmiri Pandits?
Well, Kashmiri Pandits had all kinds of problems, but the main problem arose in 1990, when the migration took place, when the whole of the valley erupted into turmoil. And that time I was a divisional commissioner here. And the Kashmiri Pandits were forced to leave through various stratagems. There were calls from the mosque asking them to leave. There were anonymous phone calls received by them.
There was an entire exodus.
That created an atmosphere of fear, and there was nobody to stop them. And they decided to leave and came to Jammu. And the task for me was to see that somehow they got shelter. So we set up these camps here. We provided relief, cash relief, so that they could carry on their day-to-day lives. And we had to take care of the school children, the college students who had left their studies halfway. So we opened evening colleges and tried to somehow contain the restlessness and to contain the disappointment and the anger among the people everyone was asking, why have we been asked to leave? Why have we been forced to leave? And that was a daunting task. After that, things began to settle down, and the Kashmiri Pandits began to rebuild their lives.
Bakaya, the entire exodus happened, like you said, back in the 1990s. But even still, the international community does not recognize Kashmiri Pandits as a refugee in their own land. And even after your tenure, you haven't been able to convince people that they are refugees in their own land. It's quite disappointing. But don't you think it is kind of your defeat as well?
All kinds of organizations here in the state and in the country and in the diaspora have been making relentless efforts to communicate with various fora, which are opinion makers, and to make them agree that this was ethnic cleansing. This was not just one of those things that happened because there was an environment of fear. And temporarily people decided to leave with intention of returning. It was ethnic cleansing because, and let me make it very clear that the whole of the population of Kashmir was not involved. It was a section of people in that time who had taken on the leadership role, who had decided the Kashmiri Pandits should not stay there. And they created conditions for them to leave. And this was therefore ethnic cleansing. After the Kashmiri Pandits began to live in the tents and one-room tenements in hovel-like situation, people from all over the world came and recognized the fact that they had been displaced, they were refugees in their own land, and maybe there was ethnic cleansing. But there are many organizations which are now focusing on ensuring that the world admits that this was ethnic cleansing and this was also genocide. So the attempts are continuing. But meanwhile, life had to go on. So the displaced people here have, by and large, carried forward their day-to-day lives, taking care of their children's education.
Mr. Bakaya, I've been to the Relief Commissioner's office. When I went there, I saw there these old Kashmiri Pandits who have to struggle there for the bifurcation of ration cards and for the minutest of problems. So the leaders of your community, if they cannot even solve these minutest and normal problems, then what are they doing? What is being done for the Kashmiri Pandit community?
To a large extent, things have been streamlined, and in the Relief Commissioner's office, yes, it is a problem, bifurcation. There are rules and procedures that have to be followed, and in doing that, it's necessary that those who are dealing with these subjects in the Relief Commissioner's office should have empathy, and they belong to the same community as the displaced people. But by and large, things are moving smoothly. I mean, their day-to-day matters have been resolved. For instance, their registration in the data bank, their relief is being sent into their accounts and their ration cards. This bifurcation sometimes is a problem because, you know, there are certain grey areas which the Relief Commissioner wants to ascertain. So that takes time. But you see, as far as possible, the Relief Commissioner and the government have been trying to make life comfortable for them. They can't get the life that they left in Kashmir. Those who have built their own houses are living the way they want. But there are others who are living in these two-room tenements, like in Jagti and like in Muthi and like in Purkhu and Nagrota.
BJP made a promise, right? They made a promise that when they come into power, they would send the Kashmiri Pandits back to the valley.
Yes, they did.
As of now, where does the Kashmiri Pandit community stand?
The BJP did make this commitment that they would like them to go back. And but unfortunately, there was an unexpected reaction from the valley. The Kashmiri Pandit has sold off most of his land. He has sold off most of his property. He doesn't have anything left to go back to in the villages and the towns which he has left behind. So he wants to go back, but he would like to go back and settle in clusters, because that will give them a sense of security, sense of identity. And but there is an objection in a section of society there to this kind of a resettlement. Therefore, I think the BJP also developed cold feet and just didn't pursue this matter further. But yes, every Kashmiri Pandit wants to go back with dignity, wants to go back on its own terms, because the Kashmiri Pandit community is a very deeply hurt community, traumatized. The wounds may have started healing, but even the scars pain, you see. So it's an unprecedented event that has taken place in recent history in India.
Would you talk about going back in clusters? A parliamentary report shows that 1,400 families applied for going back to the valley, but only one family went. Then why is it that, is the situation still not in the valley that people, the Kashmiri Pandits can go back? Do they fear a very
there's no
violent
reassurance.
reaction?
There's no reassurance that they'll be comfortable. Although the Kashmiri Pandit per se has not been harassed, or he's not been asked to leave, because there are about 3,000 Kashmiri Pandit youth who are working there, who, when they're in the package, they're living in accommodation provided by the government, and also in private accommodation. They're going to government offices, working there. And except when there is a storm of violence which sweeps the valley occasionally, when they are also targeted, by and large, they're leading a normal, peaceful life. But those who said they would like to go back was those who responded to an advertisement from the Relief Commissioner, because at that time they had these plans, you know, they would be sent back in clusters and all that. But then that plan has fallen through, and the BJP and the central government has done nothing to pursue this plan.
But there are Kashmiri Pandit organizations who demand homeland, like
Yes.
a separate portion of Kashmir that should be made into a union territory, or just a portion kept for Kashmiri Pandits. Do you think it is a feasible kind of wish? Can it happen?
Well, at some future date it could happen. It happened to the Jews. But it is a dream, and there's no harm in dreaming, because a displaced community, especially when it has been displaced for no fault of its own, would, and it has lived for thousands of years in that valley, in peace.
But wouldn't it create more problems?
No,
Separating
I'm
another
saying
region?
they would not like to go back to the villages, to the towns, because their belief is that if they go back, nobody knows them. The generation which they left behind has passed out, but the new generation would know them. So, and maybe that will endanger their lives also, those who are living there. So they would like to live in clusters, like people who come from Kashmir live in clusters in Jammu also. So they would like to live in clusters, and homeland is a dream, that if at all I want to go back, and this has given some kind of an enthusiasm, some kind of an energy to the Kashmiri Pandit. So it is one of those movements which keeps the hopes alive that we are going to go back, and keeps this belief alive that that is my homeland, that is my original home.
Like you talked about, you know, the young generation. When the exodus happened, many Kashmiri Pandits who moved here, they couldn't handle the temperature changes, many of them died. What would happen if they actually went back and they couldn't manage with the minus temperature there? The young generation who hasn't lived in that area, who doesn't belong to that area,
Yeah,
if they do go back, they'll face that problem. The young generation in Kashmir doesn't know this community, these people who follow a different religion, different customs. They wouldn't know that, wouldn't create a different sort of tension.
That can happen, but then, as I said, about 3,000 youth who have already gone there in the last 7 or 8 years in the package. They're living there throughout the year, and they have adjusted with the cold, with the conditions, and some of them have taken their children along, and they have also adjusted. So this kind of adjustment to the climate, after all, genetically, the Kashmiri has a habitat which is cold. In fact, it took him a lot of time to adjust to the heat of Jammu. And I believe that it will not be difficult for him to adjust to the cold of Kashmir, because that's what comes naturally to him.
Okay.
But then that can be a problem in the future. But homeland is a dream which we are, the Kashmiri Pandit community is entitled to dream, and that gives them hope also.
Another thing is that the Kashmiri Pandits who at that time lived in the interior of Kashmir or lived in far-off rural areas, and now they see they're working in multinational companies, or some of them who have made a home there, they don't actually want to go back. There are some of those who don't want to go back. Then isn't it that there should be a way of rehabilitating them in Jammu only? Instead of selling this false belief, okay, you will go back to the homeland, you will go back to the valley, you will go back to the valley, because the situation is such.
Well, to some extent, it's true that they have settled in Jammu. Those people who have made their homes here, sold their property in Kashmir and settled here. But then, what are roots about? You look for your roots, and your roots lie in Kashmir, and your psyche is nourished by the thought of those roots. And
but isn't that a false dream?
yes, it is. It is a false.
And
it
for
is
the
a
younger
dream.
generation, wouldn't it be better to just tell them, ki, okay, now this is your home?
Well, that is a pragmatic view to take. But then a young man or a youngster or his other generation would not like to believe that his claim on his homeland has been totally demolished. I mean, he should be assured that whenever he wants to go back, it is his home, as much as of anyone else. In fact, he has been living there for the last thousands of years. So he should not get this feeling that he has been cut off from his roots for no fault of his. He may not go, but he should know that he can go there at any time as a matter of right, with dignity.
Yeah. Let's talk about the politics of things now. You belong to NC, and NC has been power in Jammu and Kashmir for a long time. I mean, 12 years if you check out the recent tenures. So what has your party done for Kashmiri Pandit community?
You see, Mr. Manmohan Singh announced a package saying...
That is the center, right?
No,
center,
but it is the NC,
parties.
it is NC, Mr. Omar Abdullah, which implemented the package. The Congress did not. It is the NC which said, okay. Yeah, and the implementation started almost 3 years after it was announced. And that was because the government of Omar Abdullah as Chief Minister set up a mechanism through which all this was monitored. There was an apex committee set up by his government, which was represented by all the organizational heads. And there, all the nitty-gritty of the Kashmiri Pandit problem was highlighted and decisions were taken. And employment was provided, medical relief was provided to the needy by the government, and their problems were highlighted in Delhi. And
Mr. Bakaya, what do you talk about the Jagti quarters or the employment package or these reliefs that is initiated to the Kashmiri Pandit community? It's always been the centre's initiative and the national parties, BJP or Congress, who have done it. Maybe, like you said, it's NC who implemented it, but it's always these national parties who have taken the initiative to do things. Then why is it that your community does not really wish to vote for BJP or Congress and they prefer voting for NC or PDP?
The Kashmiri Pandit community doesn't prefer to vote for any party. They have not traditionally and historically voted for any party. If it
is like that, shouldn't the BJP have won the Habakadal seat?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They didn't vote for them. The Kashmiri Pandit didn't vote for them. And the Kashmiri Pandit community had fielded one candidate. BJP had fielded one candidate in BJP. He lost. He got barely 4,000 votes. And the Kashmiri Pandit community got 7 mandates in the valley, and all of them lost their deposits. Because Kashmiri Pandit is taking the plea that its voting rights have been denied to him because he has to fill up a form indicating his preference for the polling booth. And that is a very tedious process. So he prefers not to vote. He, unlike any other voter, he doesn't have to come out of his house and go straight to his polling station and cast a vote. He has first to fill up a form, deposit the form. That is one deterrent. But traditionally, the Kashmiri Pandit has not been voting en masse. But the Kashmiri Pandit has recognized that the party which is most close to its heart is the National Conference. National Conference has recognized the role the Kashmiri Pandits have played in the history of Kashmir, in the economy of Kashmir, in the society of Kashmir.
So what do you think is next for the Kashmiri Pandit community? What's next? BJP made a promise, it didn't deliver. Now there are recent elections. You say that homeland is a dream. It's a dream, it's a faraway dream.
Yeah.
So what is next?
homeland is one thing that binds them. This dream binds them together. But what next? The Kashmiri Pandit has done well for himself, despite this stupendous adversity. The children have done well for themselves, except those people who couldn't compete at the national level, who we sent in the package to Kashmir. So, and they have shown their mettle everywhere in the world, wherever they've gone. And but the desire to go back and settle still persists. That is still there. And let us hope in the future government will come along and say, okay, so civil society in Kashmir also will rise and say, okay, the civil society in Kashmir has always said you are welcome, but they've said you are welcome to go back to your own village which you left. And that is not a practical solution. Civil society has, in Kashmir, has also to give reassurance to the Kashmiri Pandit by not raising false narratives. The narrative being that you were not pushed out, you were not asked to leave, you left on your own. That is the narrative that's going on. And that is hurting, because it is a historical fact. The historians will record that the Kashmiri Pandit was asked to leave, and many of them were killed brutally and mercilessly, and to create conditions for them to leave totally. So, but if the narrative is no, you were driven out under a conspiracy of somebody, and that you left on your own, that does not build confidence.
So the first step is acceptance of history as it happened.
Yes, yes.
Right.
You see, those people who have not lived through that nightmare today, the generation which was born after 90, doesn't remember and doesn't know what kind of a scenario that was, where there was a crescendo rising from every mosque asking the Kashmiri Pandits to leave, and raising slogans of Hum Kya Chahte, Azadi and Nizam Mustafa. And there was nobody to stop these people, to reassure them, okay, no administration. And many in the administration at that time, when I was divisional commissioner, told me, where have they come to you from? They left at night, they left early morning, whatever came in their hand, whatever baggage they dumped into a truck and left, because there was that sense of fear. But this has to be acknowledged, that situation was created in Kashmir for the Kashmiri Pandit to leave. He did not leave on his own.
Such situation has gotten better over the years or worse? Like you said, some Kashmiri Pandits have gone back and they are living
No,
there.
situation is definitely not what was in the 90s. It is definitely much better.
It's better.
For the civilians, yes. The Kashmiri Pandit is, whoever is living there is living as he used to. And the brotherhood between the Kashmiri Muslim and the Kashmiri Pandit never got tattered. I mean, it remained. Of course, there were misgivings, there was disillusionment, there was fear, hatred also. But the brotherhood, the sense of belonging to each other, that has continued, and that's a ray of hope. That's a ray of hope. And the new generation, which needs to come closer, and that will remove the pain of these wounds to some extent.
Thank you, Mr. Bakaya, for this conversation.
Thank
On this
you.
hopeful note, we'll like to end this. This was Pallavi Sareen on the Straight Line Talks with Mr. Vijay Bakaya.